Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give some of our guests a minute or so just to join us. My name is Ian McKechnie. I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships at the Advanced Services Group. This afternoon, we have a one-hour webinar talking about servitization strategy. And we're delighted to be able to share that we've got all three authors with us this afternoon to allow you to meet the minds behind the book. We will be starting perhaps in about 30 seconds. We have 102 delegates registered for the session today, spanning 22 countries, I'm delighted to share, all the way from Argentina to Canada, from India, China, and across all of mainland Europe. So really good to see lots of friendly faces and guests along with us this afternoon. So the structure of the session will be a very brief welcome from myself. Then we'll hand over to Professor Tim Baines, Professor Ali Bigdeli, and Dr. Kawal Kapoor to allow them to tell you a bit more about Servitization Strategy, their new book. And then we'll talk about a little bit behind the scenes in terms of the actual creation of the book, why it's so relevant, why pertinent now. And then we'll have sufficient time to deal with questions and answers towards the end of the session, perhaps the last 10, 15 minutes or so. Please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen for all questions for the panelists, and we'll make sure that we marshal these as we go through the event. And then I'll just spend perhaps 2 or 3 minutes at the end of the event closing and advising you of the future webinars that we have in the programme. Oh, just a little bit about the Advanced Services Group. So we're very different from most consultancy or advisory organisations in the fact that everything we do is research-led. So we drive the research that leads to research-led tools and models and frameworks that can be used by industry. That allows us to move up into partnering with global or international or local firms. In addition to that, it helps us open up new conversations about provision of advisory support to help businesses actually accelerate their way from being product-led to services-led. And we have a significant training portfolio that we offer to industry. Some of the companies that you can see on the screen at the moment, past and present, these have all been supported by the Advanced Services Group. The impact that we've created on our SME body alone exceeds 31 million, or about $35 million. We have companies from Rolls-Royce who are the instigators of Power by the Hour, perhaps almost 60 years ago. And you'll see that there are some small companies, some international companies, some global companies. We work with them all because they all have one passion, and that's to adopt advanced services within their respective businesses. The book, Servitization Strategy, was a culmination of 10 years of research involving Tim, Ali, and Kawal. We're also pleased to share we have a servitization playbook. Both of these are available on our dedicated website, which we'll share a URL towards the end. But today is all about the first part of this. So it's all about the Servitization Strategy book. And we've got a short introductory video just to give you a sense of what sat behind the book and how we moved it forward. So let me just get this video playing for you.
We wanted to create a book which would help firms with this manufacturing or product-based heritage to understand how to adopt servitization, how to compete through services. Did we do it?
Yeah, I think we did.
Servitization strategy is written for people who want to help their industrial firms compete through a strategy which is alternative to either competing through products or competing on basis of cost. It's for people who want to try and help their firm to compete through the idea of outcomes, through services, for doing more for the customers, for adding more value to the customers.
The servitization strategy is for executives who are struggling with different aspects of servitization. They are probably people who believe in the promise that servitization holds, the financial benefits that something like this can bring to their business, but they just don't understand how they can take this idea to senior management, to executive leadership, and convince them that this is a lucrative business opportunity.
In the book, we talk a lot about the different benefits of servitization, and we are trying to simplify those messages for the executives of the businesses. And also, one of the key questions that they always have is about how should we go about it and how can we implement such new business models. Servitization is all about organizational transformation to compete through services rather than products alone. So when you talk about servitization, you can think about two distinct changes within the organizations. One is at the organizational level, the organizational capabilities, resources that need to be in the firm. And on the other hand, is all about the business model and business model design and business model innovation.
When we talk about servitization, we aren't talking about a firm just selling more and more spare parts. We're talking about a firm that's actually innovating ultimately to compete through outcomes. And that's how we see servitization, isn't it? It's about outcomes.
There's this idea of selling something tangible, selling a product and selling the idea of ownership to customers. So, you come to me, I sell you a product, you take it home, and that's the end of story. But with servitization, it's about me making sure that you are getting the full worth of using that product. So now I'm interested in, is my customer happy with the use of the product? And that is the outcome that you're getting as a customer. You're getting value out of it. And servitization is all about delivering that outcome.
It's all about creating and capturing more value from their offering to the customers and the new ways of creating and co-creating value with the customers and for the customers. And actually it goes a little bit beyond just the firms per se. It goes beyond by explaining how the customers can also benefit and create and capture value for themselves.
This whole thing of servitization is simply saying, hey firms, what a great opportunity you've got out there. Help your customer to move from simply acquiring products to achieving those outcomes.
Ultimately, what we're looking at is a usership. You don't want to really buy the lawnmower because you like it in your garage. You really want that, your turf is nice and green and clean and trimmed.
Servitization strategy is broken into three parts. The first part deals with servitization, what it is. The second part deals with why servitization is important. And the third part deals with how to go about implementing servitization.
In part 2 of the book, where we talk about the benefits and impacts, it explains how servitization can actually bring about economic performance, economic growth, how it can actually address some of the challenges that the firms are actually facing. In part 3 of the book, we go about the how question. We are explaining how companies can actually adopt servitization and design and develop new business models around advanced services.
And you come up with these 4 categories. What we do in this third part, we break servitization down into a series of 4 very straightforward, easy to follow steps. And those steps have come from our work with businesses over the past 10 years and all the research that we've done, all the industrial experiments we've done to actually develop a knowledge base which shows organisations how to actually do this efficiently and effectively.
Businesses know that they have this opportunity to do more with services, but they don't really quite understand it in a way, is it feasible? Is it going to work out for them? Is it going to bring them the monies and the returns and the financial incentives that they've always been told that come with services?
Our approach to understanding how to do servitization has been, first of all, to understand how it has been done well, and creating this thing that we call a roadmap, which is descriptive. And we talk about that inside the book. We talk about that descriptive process. But then on the basis of that, we formed this framework, this route planner, which is key. The route planner really says, look, if you want to do servitization, this is what you do.
It's this entire step-by-step map of what you should do, how you should do, what are the best ways for you to go about it. There are lots of tips and tricks included.
What the book will actually do is help those executives to understand this transformation, to actually frame it and then to apply it.
We're trying to explain the step-by-step adoption of servitization and how they can actually implement such a new strategy in their firm.
So hopefully that has given you a very short summary of the context of the book. And now what I'd like to do is perhaps ask some questions of the authors. And maybe leading off with you, Tim, maybe inviting you to tell us maybe a bit more about the team that was involved in pulling the book together.
So I think, Ian, first of all, thank you for the introduction. I'd like to start by just telling you just a little bit about Ali and why Ali was one of the co-authors for this book, and it's all down to his research, his understanding of the concept of a business model. And when I first started to look at this field of servitization, I was struggling to make sense of these different services. The Scandinavians will often talk to you about a constellation of services. And I was really struggling to understand all these different services. And Ali helped me to understand the structure of a business model, what it contained, all the different components of it. And through that understanding, it really unlocked for me this whole idea of base intermediate advanced services and what they actually contain. So incredible contribution to actually moving this whole field of servitization forward.
And I can tell you a little bit about Cal programming. Cal has been with us for a number of years now, and what she brought to the table when we started writing the book was this critical eye that she always have in terms of the content. She's a very diligent and competent researcher, and someone that we really wanted to have on board when we were writing the book. And also she's very critical. So in the book, when we talk a lot about different stats, different numbers, different concepts, or we claim something in different part of the book, she was the first one who was asking the question about, are we sure? Are you aware of the other part of the story, etc., etc.? So she brought this wealth of understanding of the literature, but also this critical view around a lot of the claims that we've got in the book. So yeah.
Thanks, Ali. So we've done Tim, we've done Ali. Now we've done me, we've done Ali. Oh, Tim, I have to speak about you now. I have to speak about the boss. So yeah, Tim, what did Tim do? Well, he was the mastermind behind our book's overall vision. And it was because of his experience from Made to Sell, and he had this amazing ability to see the bigger picture, the purpose for our new book, Servitization Strategy, and he essentially laid out the entire structure of the book cover to cover. So like Ali was saying, I was more about, diving into the nitty-gritty details and the research, and I have this tendency to get lost in the weeds, sometimes getting too drawn into the details. And Tim was always there to pull me back up, reminding me to stay on the surfboard. So it's become a little catchphrase, a bit of inside joke between us. And I think, Tim, one of the important bits, and what you really did an amazing job of, was weaving all the different pieces of information together, creating that smooth, engaging narrative throughout the book, that cohesive story, that brought the book together. So yeah, Tim was instrumental in the creation of the book.
Thanks for the kind words, Carol. But one of the areas I really felt challenged about was Ali helped us to understand what these services were through the lens of a business model. But then, of course, this perpetual argument about, well, why should we bother with servitization? The process of innovating services, advanced services in particular, within the context of a firm which has a pedigree, a history, a heritage in production and products, bringing about services in that context is hard, because it calls for an innovation of a business model which is almost counterculture to the traditional culture of the firm. So why bother? Why bother? And one of the areas that I struggled with, and Cowell's contribution was incredibly important, was developing the argument, helping to go through. Cowell was able to go through all the previous literature in the space, paper after paper after paper, looking for the reoccurring arguments, looking for the evidence, and looking at the pedigree of the actual evidence. It's very easy to go out there and to find statements that say, hey, services are great for revenue, but how much revenue, under what conditions is that revenue achieved, and building up this thorough understanding, a factual understanding of the benefits brought about by servitization in the context of an industrial firm, by going out and looking at the literature, required that critical eye, that Cowell wonderful ability to kind of go through, identify, digest that literature, summarize that literature, and simply put it forward as 4 sets of really strong arguments that says, you know what, if you're a product-based firm and you want to get into this space, why should you do it? It's essentially, it's incredibly important because it will help you with growth, it will help you with profitability and revenue, it'll help you with sustainability, it'll help you with resilience. And here's the evidence that proves it. And that's what, Cowell, you brought to the book, and it's in there and it's incredibly valuable. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the other things, Tim, that you mentioned about Ali's work, he was he was a launch pad for the book, wasn't he? He did all the heavy lifting with the foundational research around business models, business model thinking, business model framework. It just gave us that perfect foundation to build on. And Ali, you rallied the troops basically for us from ASG, our trusted friends of ASG, partner companies, to spill the beans on their servitization experiences, to share their views, their opinions on, all aspects of servitization. And I think what was really important was just getting those first-hand accounts, and the quotes that you pulled together, Ali, really brought the ideas, the concepts that we've covered in the book to life.
Thank you, Carol. Just to round this part, I think I ought to talk about Tim as well. I hope that he's still on the call, because it's frozen from my side, but I think he can hear us. One of the challenges that we had when we were writing the book was around understanding the how to, which is in part 3 of the book. And one of the challenges that we were facing was around telling the story around how the company should go about it. And we were struggling for a number of weeks around how can we say it, and we wrote it, we deleted it, and again we came up with different ideas, etc. And I think one of the world-class abilities that Tim's got is around visualizing some complex topics. So for instance, we wanted to visualize how the interplay between organizational change and business model innovation. And he called it a Picasso moment, and he was going away at midnight and coming back at first thing in the morning with illustrations. And actually that really help us to tell the story around how these two actually interplay with each other. Of course, knowing a topic upside down, it's his thing anyway, but getting those visual illustrations in the book, where you see a version of it, we've got 100 different versions of those somewhere in the cupboard, actually helped us greatly in the actual storytelling part of the book. So we're so grateful for that.
Okay, thanks. That's been a really helpful kind of baseline to start from, because I think it gives the individual challenges and perhaps what you experienced going through that process. So tell me and tell the guests, why is servitization strategy so important at this point in time, and why now? Ali?
Yeah, I can pick up and then probably pass on to colleagues. we can look at it from different perspective. When the first book, Made to Save, came out, I think it was the right time to explain the concept, what it is, why is it important, and some high-level definition of the concept servitization and advanced services. For the past 10, 15 years, there are lots of papers, really good studies have come out, have been published, some books, some really good books have come out. They all look at this topic of servitization from a variety of different perspectives, from, let's say, organizational change to supply chain, to the role of digital technologies, to role of intermediaries, value networks, and so on and so forth. And there are really, really good stuff out there. So one of the reasons that we started to think about that we need to have this new book was around, we need to step back, we need to zoom out, we need to think about the whole topic. Our understanding of the topic has moved on as well. And we wanted to look back at the entire literature and say, and see what's been said, but bring them together in a more coherent way and actually bridge some of these ideas together. In addition to that, we also wanted to come up with some key frameworks that actually can bridge some of these ideas around business model, around organizational change, and so on and so forth. We thought it's the right time to do it. And the third, which is most important part, which we talk a little bit more about it, was around the third part of the book, which is about the how bit. We for the past couple of years, we knew a lot about what servitization is. We got to know about the importance of why is it important to go about it, but we weren't sure about the how to part, about the implementation of such new strategy, about how companies should actually go about and develop such new business models. And we felt that it's a right time, based on the work that we've been doing with businesses, based on the knowledge co-creation that we've made for the past 10 years or so with the business. We felt this is the right time to actually write that story and explain what others have done in this space, but also how should company go about it, and what are the key steps that they should go through in order to design, develop such new business models and actually implement it in their organizations. So there are different ways of looking at the importance and the why of the book, Ian.
Okay, thanks, Ali. Carol, anything to add to Ali's contribution?
Yeah, I could come from a different perspective, Ian. I mean, if you look at it, this book couldn't be more timely because I was looking, like Tim was saying, I was looking at all of the evidence that's out there, and there's just overwhelming evidence that servitization is a powerful engine for economic growth. And we have global surveys that are consistently showing us that services are a major new revenue stream for manufacturers, and they're a significant part of the world economy. In fact, services now account for about, I think it's 2/3 of the global GDP. So these are 2020 figures, and services were at an average of 65.7% of the GDP across world economies. And if you look at the international trading patterns, they used to be dominated by goods, but now we're seeing a rise in the services share. It used to be only 9% in 1970s, and it's gone over to 20%. I have the last figure from 2019, so that's at 20%. And we've got reports that also show that services came up to an average share of 22% of the world trade in 2020. And if you look at the World Trade Report, they're estimating that services will make up for nearly 1/3 of the world's trade by 2040. So we were looking at all of the different aspects, and we also look at the impact that servitization has had on the economic performance of the firms. So, for example, in terms of revenue generation, we looked at big industrial players, so the likes of, GE, Rolls-Royce, Siemens, and they were all reporting rewards from outcome-based services. They were reporting earning additional revenues from delivering outcome-based services to their customers. So I think it's the 2022 annual report of Rolls-Royce's, and it'll show you around half of the company's total revenue was generated from long-term service agreements and maintenance of its engine products. GE, it's got a GE Power. It's got a similar story to tell. 48% of their revenues, and these are 2021 figures, they came from services, and services that that those were covering maintenance contracts, equipment upgrades, software solutions. So we were seeing a similar trend across firms, across industries. We also looked at profitability, and when you look at the evidence in research, you'll see that most of them are reporting that the profitability might initially dip with services, but once a critical mass has been reached, then the profitability significantly improves. There's this interesting survey. They put together 200 industrial executives from firms that were on their servitization journey not too long ago. I think this is a 2018 survey. And the results of the survey reported that with higher service maturity, a manufacturing firm can turn up to 3 times more profit than those firms that are focused only on products. So these were all very significant figures for us. We didn't stop there. We looked at productivity. There was again another 2021 survey, and they were looking at firms that were offering more advanced solutions, advanced services like proactive solutions, and they were reporting high productivity, 27% higher productivity in firms that were offering advanced services. ASG conducted our own survey of 77 SMEs in the Midlands, and we saw that service-based business models were resulting in productivity improvements by 16%. So it became very clear to us that servitization is more than just a trend. It's a transformative force shaping the future of manufacturing, the future of businesses, and this was just the right time for the book for us.
I mean, it's obviously very clear the evidence that's there. But Tim, anything else that we're missing in terms of either its importance or why particularly now that we see it in the same light as other mega trends coming through? Sorry, Tim, you're on mute for some reason. Can you just check?
Yes, sorry, apologies. So, yes, just reflecting on it and just revisiting the thinking that we had as we were pulling the book together. I think fundamentally, now it was doing the book now is the right time, not just for us, but also for when we actually look at firms. So we were in this space where our experience of feeling that right now we have to write this book was because when we were looking at firms, we can see firms today, we can see that the argument is really quite compelling for the firm to move into the space. Now, there were 2 sets of factors which were in my mind when we were thinking about pulling the book together. The first one was, as Ali referred to, was the formalization of the knowledge about how to do this. So in Made to Serve, we defined what we meant by advanced services, different types of services, and the service delivery system to support them. But what we didn't know was how to go about bringing about servitization inside a firm which had this history of products and production. We knew bits about it. There were a lot of studies, and have been a lot of studies, and continue to be lots of studies which will talk about some of the conditions that need to be met and some of the capabilities which will need to be in place, or they'll deal with small components of the innovation of these new business models, but nothing which was pulling it all together. And so our own research has over the past 10 years all been about bringing together that knowledge base to understand this is how you do it. So it was the right time for the book, from the perspective of the formalization of the knowledge. We now know how to do this. We now know how firms that do it well do it. And therefore, we can say this is how a firm which doesn't do it can do it. And there was a second reason. And the second reason why it's now is the right time. And that comes back to some of the grand challenges that we see when we we look around us. The grand challenges, we had it through COVID with resilience and supply chains. We have it now with security and very pragmatic aspects of security about food security, and the need to introduce new technology, and we see it with climate. So we see it with the need to respond to the climate emergency, and how we've got to bring about new technology in that space and innovation taking place. So we've got grand challenges around sustainability, around defence and security, resilience, aging society. And this whole area of servitization, for a firm which has got a product-based heritage, this whole area of servitization has a potential something to say for the firm about how it can compete in this new world. So servitization is part of a response to each of those grand challenges that we face, and we now know how to do it.
Yeah, thanks. It is very insightful in terms of all the different, either the research underpinning it, the economic drivers that sit behind it, or the ability to use servitization and advanced services as a mechanism to address some of these larger grand challenges that exist. So perhaps maybe more on an experiential basis. Maybe, Carol, can you tell us how you actually went about the process of writing the book? Because that might help and give us some more additional insight.
Yeah, like working on the book together was, I like to call it a wild ride, a proper roller coaster. So, learning experiences, obviously, challenges, exciting at bit. There's a lot of excitement. For me personally, I've contributed to chapters in a book before, but this is my first book with my name on the cover, so it is very special. Yeah, the book writing process, we had our moments. We faced plenty of challenges and frustrations, but we also managed to have some fun along the way. Small victories were, exceptional days where we actually, the three of us, agreed more than argued more. So there were those days. A few, but there were. So yeah, when we'd be happy with the narrative, we'd agree that we've got that illustration right. It would be those were good moments. Also, I think this writing process wasn't particularly easy for me because coming from an academic background and then having to adapt my writing style for a practitioner audience was a very new ballgame for me. The writing styles are very different when you're writing for a journal article versus when you're writing for a book for practitioners. It's just, on the one side of the coin, you're required to put in so much justification and so much evidence into things, but on the other side, you have practitioner audience who want punchy facts and how to do it and when to do it and why to do it. So we had to think out of the box a lot. We had to refine and simplify a lot of complex concepts in a way that were both clear and engaging. Even the research phase was very intense because, as you were yourself mentioning, Ian, we were looking at the intelligence we gathered over the past 10 years or so. So you can imagine the expanse of it, all of the research that we'd done that had been developed over the years in working with companies either who were involved in our partnership program or the SMEs that we'd engaged with over the years. We were learning from all of these companies, and these companies, as we were going, they were learning how to servitize. So, everything to do with their successes, their failures, how they were responding to challenges. We were now having to take all of that rich information, but distill it in a way that all of that raw data, those insights could now follow a logical structure as we managed to capture in the book. So it was quite the undertaking. We spent countless hours just debating the best way to present each aspect of the book, always trying to find the right words to convey the message. And when the book finally arrived, I couldn't have been prouder of our collective achievement. And I've always said this, it wasn't just about putting pen to paper. It was about us sharing our vision for the future of businesses and then capturing it in a way that would inspire the readers to take action, make a difference. So yeah, quite a ride.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pride that comes out of that, Carol, and it's obvious from that. But I'll bring you back perhaps to your description of moments. So maybe if Ali, if you get any positive moments or negative moments that you would like to share more widely before I hand to Tim.
I think definitely the positive moment was when the book actually arrived, and all of the wealth, and when Carol said about the writing, the experience, and writing academics, academic papers and academic journals was so different to writing this book. But then when it comes to the content of the book, we've been doing research on servitization for many, many years. And when Tim and I started to talk about, and Carol started to talk about the book, which was about probably 3-4 years ago, we didn't want to write a book on the topic. We wanted to write the book on servitization. And it actually put further pressure on us, because as I said, we wanted to write something of high quality that is relevant to industry, but also resonates with the wealth of research that's gone into this topic. So we wanted to give justice to both, and it wasn't easy to bring the two perspectives together. So when we started writing the book, as I said, I think the easier parts are the first two parts for us, because we've been doing it for a number of years. Carol was instrumental to bring all the literature, all the research that's been done for the past couple of years into a coherent story. And then the difficult moments when we were talking about the part 3 of the book, when we were writing about the how, and I think it took us the longest period to finish the third part of the book. And I think a couple of other things that I experienced was we wanted to write a book that is relevant to different industries, not a specific company, not a specific industry. Servitization is relevant to so many different industries, from constructions to transport to whatever industry you say, servitization can be applied. And therefore, a lot of the cases that we've got in the book, a lot of the interviews that we've done, a lot of the discussions that we've had with different people, they are from different industries. If you look at the transcripts, they are very, very different when it comes to the explanation of the experience of people, of how they've gone about it. For instance, we've been speaking with the chief executives of transport companies, as well as the chief innovation officers of packaging manufacturers. Although they both experienced servitization, they had different stories to tell. In the book, we want to bring one coherent story that captures all of them, and it was quite challenging for us to come up with that. And then one final bit is that when we were writing the book, I think Tim was brilliant in this, that we wanted to have a one single narrative throughout the book, so it hopefully doesn't come across as 3 different people have written a single piece. We want to have one story with one single voice going out through the book. And it was a very good lesson learned for me as well, personally.
Yeah, fabulous, Ali. Thank you. Tim, any specific moments jump out at you?
Yes, I think Ali's point about wanting to write the book is really important, because it sounds slightly arrogant. It's not meant to be, but we have, in the academic world, it's not unusual to write books. We have colleagues who will write many books. For us, it was always about doing this one book very, very well. That was our ambition. And I was asked about how long had I been working on the book last year at some point, and I said 10 years. And the guy at the company that I told this to, he just thought I was just an incredibly slow writer. How can you take 10 years writing a book? But what I was really trying to make out was that the process of researching and understanding how companies that did this process of innovation of these advanced services, how they did it and did it well, understanding that really has taken 10 years. And we started the book writing properly about 3 years ago, and we, as Ali said, we got through the first two parts of it. Generally speaking, I mean, we in terms of some of the underlying concepts, we got through that quite quickly, and then we got to the phase of, right, now we need to prescribe to a firm how to go about this stuff. And we knew that how firms had gone about it, but we couldn't quite grasp how a firm should go about it. And we had to stop, and we had to spend several months just going back over what we'd seen, the firms that we knew, and trying to figure out what was actually going on. And we did that, and that was really, that was a breakthrough moment. And then, having understood the basic, yes, you need to do it in this way, then as Carol and Ali spoke about this being generic, the next challenge was to represent it in a way which was sufficiently detailed to be meaningful to a company, but sufficiently abstract to be generic. And so you see that in the route planner that we have inside. We describe the process of how to go about servitization as 4 tasks and 12 activities. It's not a flow diagram of 500 steps and 500. It's really at a high level, so a firm can conceptualize it and talk about it and execute it in a quite pragmatic way. But it is sufficiently detailed that a firm, it's actually meaningful to the firm. So developing that was a real breakthrough moment for us all, was really trying to get to that stage of, we want to write the book in the space, but to do that, we really do need to make sure we understand how to do this properly. And that's what we spent our time doing.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. That's really helpful. I mean, you've touched upon the playbook there. Maybe perhaps if I can just take a couple of seconds just to remind our guests today that the Q&A function is there. We will be going to that after the next final question, and that'll give you a chance to pose anything that is of specific interest to you today. But maybe on the playbook, Ali, Carol, would one of you maybe like to just give a quick summary of perhaps where you think it's a very strong complement to servitization strategy?
Start, and Carol, perhaps I can pass it on to you.
Yeah.
I think we've got a dedicated webinar that we will talk about the playbook in the coming weeks for sure. But just to give you a sense about what it is, I think in the book we're explaining the concept, we're explaining some of the background work, and we're explaining some of the evidence around what servitization is, different types of services, different revenue models. Some of the evidences around the why, which is in part 2 of the book, around the benefits, as the stuff that Carol talked about, the financial benefits, the sustainability aspects, etc. And the third part of the book, which is about the how-to, we are proposing a route planner. In the book, we stay at the concept level, and we try to explain and quite in a descriptive way. We thought it would be a missed opportunity if you don't have a complementary publication or a document that goes actually beyond just explaining what it is into a more prescriptive world around what are the key steps that you need to go through, key activities, key steps, and key tasks that you need to go through to be able to design and develop these new business models, but also bring in the coalition, bringing the organizational into the whole mix, and then bring the organization with you as you develop and implement this. So the whole reason for the playbook is having a very much prescriptive documents that explain the step-by-step how-to. Did I give justice, Carol, to the playbook?
Yeah. I'll just add a bit to that, Ali. So, the playbook is specifically designed for executives in industrial firms who know they want to execute a servitization program. So we designed it in a way that executives can simply pick, quickly understand, and almost immediately apply within their organizations with a certain degree of confidence, because this is coming out of everything that we've observed and witnessed over years of watching successful firms do this, and we've been now able to completely, document this and put it into steps, like Ali was saying. So we've broken down the servitization program into specific tasks, and we specify what to do, how to do, and what you should bear in mind while going about these tasks. So I think the important difference is that in the playbook, it has concise steps. We don't justify any of these steps in the playbook. We don't explain any of the underpinning research that we've conducted with all of the world-leading companies that we worked with over the years. For that, you'll have to go read the book, Servitization Strategy. So that's how the book and the playbook sit together.
Yes, and if I can just add in, if the book represents the research and a demonstration of the depth to which we really understand how to do this stuff, servitization, the playbook is the friendly face to it. It's the face that you will use inside industry to actually pull a team together, to create the argument, then to move into kind of engaging with advanced services, understanding, proving out the concept, validating it, developing your revenue model, etc., etc. So the playbook is the high level summary of the key arguments, the key content. But the book justifies why that content is there, and it's incredibly important, the book is, because for somebody to just look at the playbook and say, yeah, okay, we get it, that's not enough. You kind of need to look at the book itself to develop, understand the pedigree that sits behind it. Does that make sense, Ian? Did you get
very helpful, Tim? And I think we're starting to see some questions coming through. So perhaps maybe if I finish the kind of open session with you, just by coming back to you, Ali, and maybe getting you to just very quickly summarize what you think our guests would miss from not engaging with the book.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good question. I think one of the things that we were very proud of with the book is that the book explains a lot of different stories, successful but also not very successful stories, about how the companies, or what companies have gone about it and how they've gone about it. I think more or less we've got about 30 odd companies in there one way or another, and we've used their experiences in the book when we are trying to explain different aspects of servitization. So for those who are within the journey, for the companies that are actually have started the journey, I think it's beneficial because of the latter part of the book. We try to explain the how-to part. And for those firms that are starting to think about the servitization as a strategy to move forward, I think it's the stories and the examples in the book really, we feel that will resonate with them in the journey, and actually helps them to understand, is this the right strategy? Is this the right business model for us? Why should we go about it, type of thing? I think the first immediate questions that we get asked from the companies who haven't gone or haven't get close to the topic is this the right strategy for us? And if so, where should we start? And I think the book, especially the earlier part of the book, is trying to address those specific questions.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Any other remarks, Carol, to add before I hand to then Tim?
Yeah, I mean, it's just but so we know that businesses these days have realized, or they're coming to the realization that just delivering quality products is not going to be enough. And there's a wide acknowledgement of the fact that customer behavior is evolving, Ian. So and they're after outcomes, after exceptional experiences, and that's why we created Servitization Strategy and the playbook, because we go into looking at how to implement a successful servitization strategy. We provide practical tools and frameworks. Some of them in the webinar might already be familiar with the transformation roadmap. Like we also have the servitization route planner guide that we were talking about in the video earlier, that practitioners can apply to implement the servitization program within their organizations. We've documented several real-world cases. So, for instance, what did Rolls-Royce or Goodyear or MAN do, and why? And more importantly, how did they do it? What's it about financiers and revenue models that you need to know? Or what does the maturity of service transformation look inside like in a firm? I think the last thing to add would be if you ever get to speak to seasoned industry leaders like Des Evans, a former CEO of MAN, or Tom Palmer, he's this ex service strategy lead director of Rolls-Royce. You'd see that they actually tell us that it's all about they go to the extent of using the language of every firm should have their own chief strategy or chief servitization strategy officer, or how servitization is inevitable, or how servitization is the future. And in the book, we explore this very future where servitization is becoming increasingly crucial. And we want to help our readers understand and embrace these trends around product service innovation so they can stay ahead of the curve. They can use servitization as the opportunity to future-proof their business.
Fabulous, Carol. Thank you. Tim, have we missed anything?
No. What will you miss if you don't get the book? Well, you'll miss the map. You'll miss the navigator. So if it's a bit like going on a journey from London to Inverness, without having never been before, without a map. And what the book does is it just lays out the map of how to do it. So it de-risks the servitization process for a firm. It says, this is the way to do it. This is how other people have done it. Follow this route.
Okay, fabulous. Thanks, Tim. So let me move over to the questions that are coming through from the guests. So the first one talks about this move from a product-led strategy to a services-led strategy. And obviously there are other things around that, like sustainability and circular economy needs. Is there a need for both mindsets? And if so, how might one do that?
So if I start to respond in and then come back to Ali and Carl, if anything else to add. So the question is there a need for both mindsets? Perhaps another way of putting it is, can both mindsets coexist? And the answer is yes, they can. And it all comes down to being clear about the ambition for services, being clear about the heritage, the product-based heritage, and the extent to which the products and the services will come together in the future to form the future value propositions of the firm. And we deal with that in the book through what we call the services staircase. It's all about how you blend the products and services together, ultimately to focus on outcomes. And then what this kind of coexistence of both the products and the product and the services-based firm, that can happen, but it just has to have the right type of governance process inside it. And again, inside the book, we talk about how to go about positioning those two sets of capabilities.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Perhaps, Carol, Ali, maybe 30 seconds on anything that you think could strengthen that response.
Very quickly, I mean, so we do touch upon the strategic resilience aspects and the sustainability of firm aspects, but in the context of servitization within the book. It's in chapter 6. We collated all of the evidence that's out there about how firms with a sustainability mindset and keeping strategic resilience in mind have ventured into servitization and found success. So all of that is in the book. Ali, anything to add?
I think you've covered it well. I'm just conscious of the time, and we've got one or two other questions as well.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Ali, maybe one for you then when you're on. So we've got a question here about a company recently acquired an automation integrator, and the core business is project-based, but there's a small element of recurring services. So great question for the webinar. What first steps should they take to expand the services element of the business model?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think you've got the word business model. If you wanted to focus on just, let's say, the services elements within the organization, and then I'll refer back to the book again. In the book, we talk about two distinct changes within the organization that should happen not at the same time, but probably in parallel at some point. One is around the design and development of new business models. And then in the book, we explain that when you reach a key success, let's say, when you address some of the success criteria within that projects, then you can start thinking about the organizations and bring in the coalition within the organization to move the whole thing with you. But if you think about the business model just on its own, one of the things that we always talk about when we talk about designing a new services-led business model is to focus on the customers first. So we've got this 4-quadrant business model framework, and I'm sure you're aware of it, but the top left quadrant is all about the customer value proposition. Everything starts with the customer. It's about empathizing with the customer, understanding what the customer's needs are, what is it that keeps them awake at night, etc., etc. And it's where the whole thing starts. And then you move into, let's say, customer segmentation, and then see how you can address some of those challenges. But everything starts with, how can I help customers achieve their goal or achieve the outcomes that they're after? So a golden answer is always about start with the customer.
Fabulous, Ali. Carol, anything to overlay, please?
No, so again, just conscious about the time. I mean, yes, everything around possibly assessing what your current service offerings are, some sort of, identifying the service gaps in the markets, the unmet customer needs, like Ali's saying, it's all about the customers. So, and later on, it's in the book that we cover that you cannot expect to do a lot early on. So it's about splitting tasks, something as simple as forming a coalition first and establishing an argument as to why really you need services in the first place for your organization, and getting that buy-in, and then getting into other stages and doing the bigger things. So focusing first on business model innovation and everything that comes with, building the capabilities or making organizational changes a lot later. So getting that sequence is important. Setting the expectations right at the beginning is important. Not going into the mindset of doing everything at once is really important to understand. And everything that I'm talking about that Ali's mentioned has been covered in the book. If you need more information, I'll be happy to speak to you separately. But yeah, just conscious about the time. Tim, anything to add?
No, so very shortly, what those first steps to take, yes, that's inside the book, that's inside the roadmap, and of course it depends upon your current your current position to be able to say what you should do next. And the second one about the point about re-envisaging. We talk in the book about the skill sets and about the people that need to be successful inside a firm for services to really work well. But most importantly, we set out when you start to deal with questions like the one about internal stakeholders and re-envisioning people. We talk about when you do that, and that's really quite important.
Okay, thank you, Tim. And I've just noticed there's another question has come up here about, does the book offer help for companies and their internal stakeholders to help them re-envisage themselves as providers of a service rather than creators or marketers and sellers of products? And I think in totality it does. I think a shameful plug here perhaps for the location where you would find the Servitization Playbook and the Servitization Strategy Book, along with our other Servitization and Advanced Services assets. But we will come back directly to those questions that we haven't answered. We'll do that when we send out a copy of the recording of the webinar. And I think it only leaves me just to kind of summarize that there are lots of videos and content on demand that we've created and curated over the years that talk about specific aspects of servitization and advanced services transformation. Our next webinar coming up in the series will be the 29th of May. We're delighted to have Paul Jennings with us, the ex-CEO from JCB Finance. And on the 5th of June, we will be having a very open ask the authors any type of question that you would like in relation to Servitization Strategy and the Servitization Playbook. So it just leaves it for me to thank Carol, Tim, Ali for the contributions this afternoon and insightful journey over the last number of years in terms of bringing the book together. A reminder to our guests that we have our research-based activities, partnership advisory, and our training. You can find us on these social platforms. Please reach out and ask us if you have any questions regarding the webinar or the webinar series. And I'll just start by thanking you all for joining us this afternoon, this evening, or this morning, depending on where you're located. And finally, to Christina behind the scenes, who makes all of this possible. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.